Hey there traders, thanks for joining me for this video. I just wanted to bring you a quick recap of the trades taken last week at thestockbandit.com. There was a mixture of day trades and swing trades and longs and shorts, as generally is found there at the site. That's really my style of trading. I like to operate on multiple time frames, and I'm willing to trade in either direction wherever the technical advantages happen to lie. So last week was an interesting week. We had a holiday shortened week. The market was closed on Monday, if you'll recall, in observance of Martin Luther King Day. And once again, we saw a big gap to start the week on Tuesday. That was the third straight Tuesday where we had seen a gap to start the week. So last week I did take a number of trades as highlighted in my daily trading plan over at thestockbandit.com. I just wanted to walk you through those and show you the setups and how they worked out. And this will give you not only a look over my shoulder for the types of plays taken at the site, but also the types of plays that are working right now in this environment. So up first was on Tuesday. We got a gap up in the market. I had a number of candidates, but the market gapped through a lot of those intended plays, and so I ended up just taking one trade on Tuesday. That was long ESI. Here's a stock that had seen a really nice rally and then several days of lateral price action, and on Tuesday this thing attempted to move higher. Let me show you the intraday chart. That's back here. The trigger took place right there as ESI crossed through 65.40. It went about 1% higher at its peak of the day, but then the market itself was happening to pull back. So I closed out what ended up being a break-even trade as this thing just failed to continue higher. The next trade I took was in CP. This was on Wednesday. And here again, I was looking for a breakout through this recent high and went long CP on a breakout as this thing crossed the 69.85 level. That was right around in here. This white line is that trend line that you see. But I had set my trigger just slightly beyond that. So I moved through about this 69.85 level. Really triggered a nice trade in this thing. This is a really easy hold. This thing rallied $1.21 into the closing bell. Just a real smooth trend, no reason to exit. So it's just kind of one of those trades that was able to be held all day long. Next trade that I took was in FII. This was also on Wednesday, and here again, just looking for this thing to bust out through this multi-day resistance. Ultimately, this thing went considerably higher, but on Wednesday, this thing was bought right here, 1775. It's right about there, and just made about a 1% real quiet profit by the closing bell. Never offered a real reason to exit. Just continued kind of this trend, and that carried over into the following day, but I did not trade it on that particular day. So just kind of a minor gain there of about 1%. Also took this trade in Life, L-I-F-E, which was this setup right here. Actually had a slightly different trend line drawn. I was watching this descending trend line, which I redrew for another possible play later in the week, which never did trigger. But I was looking at this descending trend line right here, which was just briefly crossed. So let me show you that on Wednesday. That was right here late in the day, and this thing crossed through that trend line. The trigger was actually right at $47. So this thing pushed through the whole number at 47. It was late in the day, like I said, didn't have much time to work. I gave this thing a 20-cent stop and ultimately just made a few cents by the closing bell because I just adjusted my stop pretty aggressively due to it being the last hour of the day. But all in all, this thing just drifted a little bit higher by the bell, nothing very significant. And then came Thursday, which was really the best day of the week. Let me show you the trades that I took then. Up first was Netflix, which is a stock that's obviously shown a ton of recent momentum, and I had set up a breakout play here if this thing could push through the 100 level. Well, on the intraday chart here, you see that right after the opening bell, this thing did move through that $100 level, and it pushed really nicely higher to the tune of about $4.50. And so it was a really clean move higher. The initial move was about $1.75. It then pulled back to test that breakout level and then lifted really cleanly from there. So it's hard not to make money in a good trade like this. So just a great technical play. This thing ultimately trended higher into the afternoon as well. but all in all, it's getting a little bit stretched at this point. We saw a little bit of a pullback on Friday, which was somewhat overdue. Also, on Thursday, I took this BGC, which was really just a breakout play here. Went long through the 30.05 level, which happened right here early in the session, and it just was not able to make any continuation beyond that point. It did not stick, so ultimately I was stopped out for a 1% loss as this thing reversed back lower. I like to keep my stops very tight on these day trades, and that was the case with BGC. Very easy to manage a minor 1% loss like that. Also took this VRTX. Stock's showing a lot of strength here in recent weeks. Was looking for a breakout here through the 37.65 level, which took place right there early in the session on Thursday. But again, this thing couldn't really get going. It then reversed lower and stopped me out for a 1% loss. So another very minor manageable loss. I also took this PXP, which was on a breakout of this descending trend line here on Thursday, and show you that intraday chart. That was entered right here as this thing crossed the 37.50 level. So it was right after the opening bell. This thing pulled back and filled that minor gap in the morning, but did not trigger the 1% stop, and ultimately moved considerably higher from there. It ran about 92 cents before it topped out right here. That was about a 2.4% gain, so really a nice trade right there just for the duration of the morning before this thing ultimately pulled back, but a really nice move there. Also took this GM, which is General Motors, and this stock has shown a ton of strength since it broke this downtrend line here just a few weeks ago. Went long, by the way, on a break of this trend line right here. Back to the intraday chart. That was right here early in the session on Thursday as this thing crossed through 24.75. That was my trigger price right there. And this thing only moved modestly higher. I had mentioned in the newsletter the night before I was only going to give this a 15-cent stop, so less than 1%. And you know, this thing moved a little higher, but then ultimately reversed lower, stopped me out for that 15-cent loss. Very minor loss, but this is a stock that doesn't tend to move a whole lot, so that's why I felt it warranted a narrower stop. Also, on Friday, I took a couple day trades on the short side. First one was an SWN. Here's a stock that's in a very well-defined downtrend. We had seen some acceleration to the downside recently, and then several days of just lateral price action. So you get this inverted flag pattern, which is a downside continuation setup. So I was looking for a break of this support zone, which did take place on Friday. I went short through the 28.70 level. That was right here. The stock moved a little bit lower, bounced back up to kind of challenge that breakdown zone, did not trigger the stop, and then moved lower here into the morning lows, which really represented about a 1% move before this thing turned back around and started back up. So this burst of momentum right here was really a big change of character for the stock. So for me, it was a stop out at break even after seeing a little bit of progress and then a very sharp turn back up. So that was one that did not quite work out. And then the next one was in XEC. Here again, looking at the daily chart, here's a stock that's been very range bound here for a number of weeks. I was watching this support zone, and actually a break of this November low, which was 58.81. I set a trigger of 58.70 on Thursday night in the newsletter for subscribers at thestockbandit.com. Let me show you the intraday chart here. This is that trend line that I showed you, and a move down through the 58.70 level took place right about here. So once that level was finally broken, we saw a really clean trend to the downside. This thing ultimately moved lower to the tune of almost $1.80, and that really was right at a 3% move. So a really nice clean trend here as this thing moved almost 2 points lower. Great trend intraday and really clean. Just a really nice series of lower highs and lower lows in this thing as every little bounce got sold until late in the session when this thing finally saw a little bit more lift. So really good intraday trades for the week. There were also a couple of swing trades as well. Let me walk you through those. The first one was closed out on Thursday. Now I've been mentioning here lately when I'm doing these recap videos that I've had some open positions, and I like to discuss those after they've been closed out, simply because I'm discussing my management of these trades with subscribers at the Stock Bandit. So I'm just wanting to maintain that privacy there. let me walk you through the swing trades that I closed out this past week. There were a couple of good ones. The first one was in HFC, which is Holly Frontier Corp. This is a stock that had kind of stabilized here over the past couple of months. It did see a decent lift and then a minor pullback here for a few days. So I went long on the breakout right there as this thing cleared that trend line. And it started to work higher for a few days, but then on Thursday, I got shaken out of this thing after aggressively raising my stop in this. I got taken out for a 3.3% profit. That was a 90-cent move in this stock. So, just a good, nice, clean, painless trend higher for a swing trade. Ultimately, this thing did lift a little from there into the end of the week, but it's getting a little bit extended here, so I'm back to cash in this particular trade. And then one other one that I closed out a partial of last week was in this EBIX, which I bought earlier in the month on this trend line break. This thing hesitated initially but did not trigger my stop, which was in this area. Spent a little bit of time moving laterally and then saw a really nice clean lift. Well, on Thursday this thing hit the first target, which was right there at $24. So I closed out half that position for a 5% gain, and I've adjusted my stop for remaining shares. Again, discussing that with Bandits, but there are a couple of open positions in terms of swing trades that I'm talking about there in the member area. Other than that, it was really, all in all, a very nice week of trading. Even for just a 4-day week, there were plenty of great moves, and there were a number of these trades that you can see that just participating in one or two of those can easily pay for itself. So hopefully you had a good profitable week as well, and you can see that we obviously caught some really nice opportunities in the member area. So if you're not a member and you want some ideas to add to your own, swing by the site and check out the trial. We'd love to show you what we're all about. We'd love to trade with you or help get your trading on track through our video-based trading courses. So thanks for watching. Enjoy the weekend. Hope you appreciated the recap, and I will be back soon with more videos. But in the meantime, trade like a bandit.